So you're probably not going to hear this from anyone else, but I don't think buying a home is an investment, and I don't think buying a home is just the next thing you're supposed to do for everyone else out there. Buying a home is a very poor, lousy investment when you actually see its qualifications. Over time, although the home value may increase after all the money you actually put into it, the repairs, the fixes, and also where you could have put that money instead, what you actually get is a very poor return. And the best you can actually hope for is to actually break even. Now, does that mean you're not supposed to buy a home? The answer is no, because buying a home is not an investment decision. It is a security decision. Once you actually own a home, you don't have to worry about paying rent or paying a mortgage anymore because it is yours. And guess what? Your cost of living goes down drastically. So your ability to live a better, secure life is just vastly increased. Now, I think one of the most dangerous things is just rule of thumbs and common knowledge advice. Hey, buy a home is what everyone else is supposed to be doing. All the smart people do this. The answer is buying a home may be a good idea, but if you do it the wrong way, it could be a complete nightmare. It's like telling somebody that's a bachelor, you should get married. Why? Because that's what you're supposed to do. Then you go out there, get married with the wrong person, and it's like a complete nightmare. Although getting married is a beautiful, wonderful thing, it is supposed to be something you actually go through a process to then see who you're going to marry. Same thing with a house, okay? It's a great thing, but you're supposed to do it at a timely fashion when you're ready and when you know what you're actually doing and when you're actually capable to be able to afford a home. Buying a home is a commitment. It is not something you buy today and sell tomorrow unless you're in a super hot market. But even then, usually you're going to be looking at losing a ton of money. And that's not what you want. Now, if you guys don't know me, my name is TommyBryson. And as always, do me a favor and smash the like button. And if you guys do know me, welcome back to the channel. Now, let's break down the reasons why buying a home might not be such a great idea as you probably think it is. Number one, you can't afford it. So here's the first thing, okay? Buying a home is not about, Tommy, I can't afford it. The bank basically gave me a letter saying I can afford this much home. If I wanted to today, I can go ahead and get the home I want to get. That's not the point. The bank is in the business of lending money. They're not in the business of making sure you get wealthy. They don't care about your well-being. They don't care about you building wealth. They care about making loans that have a high probability of having, for example, a payback and then making a bunch of money on interest. But for the most part, they don't care about your personal financial wealth whatsoever. So the bank giving you an approval letter doesn't mean you can afford a home. You being able to get a home doesn't mean you can afford a home. Let me break it down, okay? So a very basic rule of thumb that I follow is what I call the 33% rule. This rule says the home you're buying is supposed to be on a 15-year mortgage. Tommy, why not put it on a 30-year mortgage? The goal is to own the home, not to just have access to the home for 3 decades. That's insane. And usually when people can't afford something, for example, like a car, a vehicle, they say, hey, we're going to give you this car in 5 years. They're like, I can't afford those payments. Don't worry. We're going to lower it. What did they just do? They extended the time of the loan. So it went from a 5-year loan to a 7 or 8 year loan. You know, I won't be surprised if in a few more years, we're going to have, for example, 35 and 40-year mortgages, okay? Just so people can feel good about their monthly payments, okay? It's terrible. So yeah, you want to look into a 15-year mortgage. Number two is the home you're buying is not supposed to cost you more than a third. That's 33% of your net monthly income. And that's the cost of the home overall. So that includes, for example, the mortgage along with capital and interest payments, the taxes, the insurance, the PMI, the HOA, and lastly, if you have maintenance too, that also should be included in there. So that should not cost you more than 33% of your monthly income. This way, the home is not eating up half of your income. This way, if you lose your job, you're still able to recover. That's the idea. And then lastly, guys, before you buy a home, you should be debt-free. And on top of that, you should have an emergency fund, because if you have a bunch of debt over your head and student loan payments and car payments, it's going to be a problem. It's going to be a disaster when something doesn't go well. It's going to be a problem when something breaks down in the home or something else goes wrong, you lose your job. It's going to be a problem. So it's like, before you actually go ahead and buy a home, you're supposed to clean up your finances, have a stability, like have an emergency fund, and then worry about the home you're going to buy and then how you're going to buy it. But do not be guided by pre-approval letters by banks, because banks just want to make money from you. Now, the second reason why it might not be a good idea to actually own a home is because you are unsure about where you actually want to live. I have very common rules on this because I made mistakes on this. I bought a home after living somewhere like for a year and saying, I want a home, I don't want to rent anymore. I bought it, and then a year and some change later, I sold the home because I no longer wanted to live there. So it's not something you actually want to do. So some common advice for me is basically, if you don't know if you're going to want to live somewhere for the next 5 years, don't buy a home. If you've been living somewhere for less than 2 years, don't buy a home. Now, I do have a way to avoid all of these rules, because again, rule of thumbs are just, for example, like simple common pieces of advice. But if you find yourself in a different situation, you could break them. If I find myself living somewhere where I have strong conviction that I'm going to stay here, I'm going to live here, the answer is you could break these rules and say, I'm going to buy a home, Tommy, because I know for sure I'm going to live here. That's fine. But for most people out there, including myself, I follow that. If I have not been somewhere for 2 years, I'm not buying a home. If I don't know if I'm going to be there for 5 years, I'm not buying a home. Because once you buy a home, you might think you can just sell it, but if the market goes down or something crazy happens, you might be selling at a loss, or you might not be selling for a minute either. So you want to be very careful when it comes to your purchase. Again, buying a home is a massive commitment, so you want to be very careful. The third reason you can't buy a home, or you shouldn't be buying a home, is because you're dependent on someone else to help you make the payments. And here's what I mean. If you're married and you have a wife, you have your husband, for example, and you both are basically paying for this home. Or, for example, you're just the one paying for the mortgage, and it's whatever, it doesn't matter. But the point is, if you're able to have a home and you have a committed relationship, as far as like you're actually married, I don't mean we're committed but we're not married, I'm not considering that like a real committed relationship. If you're married and you have a real committed relationship, that's different. But if you are, for example, with your girlfriend or your boyfriend and you guys are buying a home together, if something goes wrong, if the relationship goes toxic, if things do not work out, you're going to be stuck with the payments. That is not what you want to be involved in. I don't understand. People are against getting married. It's just contracts, but then they're willing to go into a massive contract like a mortgage with somebody else, not knowing exactly what's going to happen. You can't have commitment issues when you're committed to something that's like 15 years long, So it's a very twisted mindset in my opinion. But for the most part, it's a good sign that you're not ready to buy a home when you're basically dependent on somebody's income that's not your husband or your wife to actually pay for it. Be very careful with that. I hear stories all the time. People leaving or people relying on family members, and it does not turn out well. Now, the last reason is because the reason you actually want the home is probably not a good reason. If you're feeling peer pressured, if you're feeling like everyone is telling you it's just the next step you're supposed to do, but you know for a fact you're not ready, then just don't buy a home. I don't think it's like buying a home is not one of those things you should be peer pressured into, or you should be buying when you're not ready because someone is pushing you to do it. The answer is, once you have all the information laid there, you know you can afford it, you have the data, you know you want to live there. If you're scared, but you know you should be doing it, that's different. But if you know for sure you don't want to do it, and then someone is like basically like pushing you to do it, then that's completely different, okay? You want to really reconsider that and really think about that and pray about that, okay? That's the whole idea. But guys, that is it. Those are reasons why you might not want to actually buy a home at the moment. And by the way, if you notice in this video, I did not mention, for example, interest rates. I did not mention the market is hot or the market is cold, because those are all factors that just don't matter. If you can afford a home based on your personal finances, go for it, whether you're in a hot market or in, for example, a slow market. It doesn't matter. If interest rates are like 5% or 7%, as long as they're like less than 10%, and you can afford it, and it fits that math of no more than a third of your monthly income, you'll be just fine, okay? If things go down later on, just do the math, see if it makes sense to actually refinance. But buying a home should not be based on the economy, it should be based on you. And here's why I say that, because there will be times when the economy is bad and you're like, I'm not gonna buy a home, but there will be times when the economy is good and it looks like a great time to buy a home. Interest rates are low and everything is looking great, but you can't afford it. So there shouldn't be anything forcing you to take a decision that you just can't participate in, okay? It shouldn't be, but if I buy now, then in 30, 59 years or whatever, it's gonna be this much more interest or whatever. The point is, you buy based on your personal financial status, where you currently are, that's where you buy. You don't buy on any, for example, out factor, like, oh, the market, or it's hot right now, or houses are limited, or there's, no. You buy based on your personal finances, and that's the idea, okay? But guys, thanks for watching this video. Tommy, question, when are you buying a home? The answer is, I don't know yet. You know, I'm probably gonna wait like another year or two, or potentially 3 years until I actually buy a home. But one thing I can tell you is, I will be buying a home when I'm ready to buy a home. Not based on, for example, like peer pressure or just feeling like it's the next thing to do, because I've bought a home before, I've sold a home before, and that's not something you want to be involved in, okay? But guys, thanks for watching. As always, like, subscribe, hit the bell so you're notified. If you want, join us on Patreon. Here are the people that make the channel possible and the highlighted person. So join us on Patreon. The link is going to be down below where you get exclusive content. Up here is another video. Over here is my face. Make sure you subscribe. And as always, Long Term Team officially out.